Let's get right to it. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. Marriage and family are topping the headlines in Rome. The long-anticipated Synod of Bishops on the Family is underway. The meeting is officially to address pastoral challenges to the family in the context of evangelization. Opening the 2 weeks of formal talks on Monday, Pope Francis urged the nearly 200 cardinals, bishops, priests, and laymen gathered to speak their minds without fear or concern for human respect. Since February, much of the discussion surrounding the Synod has focused on the possibility of allowing divorced and remarried Catholics a fast pass to communion while avoiding the annulment process. The proposal is being championed by Cardinal Walter Casper. A few of the items under consideration thus far. Language has become a hot topic. On Tuesday, the bishops considered a proposal to move away from strong language with regard to immoral behavior. Examples raised include the Catechism's description of homosexual behavior as intrinsically disordered, or the description of cohabitation as living in sin. English language spokesman for the Synod, Father Thomas Rosica, said such phrases are not necessarily words that invite people to draw closer to Christ and to the Church. And on Thursday, Cardinal Francesco Coco Palmiero, a member of Pope Francis's new commission to streamline and reform the annulment process, said that he favors letting local bishops make annulment decisions in certain cases. That would be a sweeping change in that it would, for the first time, take the Church's judicial position, or process rather, out of the equation. He also suggested removing the automatic appeal for annulment cases. Stay tuned for our exclusive interview with Cardinal Raymond Burke, who has his own very strong opinions of both of these proposals. Meanwhile, the Vatican has created a bit of a row with the press who are covering the Synod. Breaking with tradition, daily printed summaries of the bishop's remarks are being withheld. The idea is that conversation without public disclosure will encourage freer debate. In lieu of the printed summaries, Vatican spokesmen are offering daily briefings summarizing the debate, but without saying who said what. Journalists shut out of the proceedings have protested. Cardinal Gerhard Müller, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, is siding with the journalists. In an interview, he said the speeches should be made public, since all Christians have the right to be informed about the intervention of their bishops. So much for that new open process. Meanwhile, despite the attempted media blackout, controversy and contention among prelates is spilling into the news, including Pope Francis himself. In an interview with Argentina's La Nación newspaper, the Holy Father appears to distance himself from those he calls very conservative bishops. This according to an English translation provided by LifeSite News. Pope Francis offered this response when asked if he was worried about the recent book by 5 cardinals opposing Cardinal Casper's proposal for dealing with divorced and remarried Catholics. The reporter told the Pope the book is, quote, critical of your positions. Pope Francis doesn't answer the question directly, but instead offered, quote, everyone has something to contribute. I even enjoy debating with the very conservative, but only intellectually well-formed bishops, end quote. The Vatican press office repeatedly declined opportunities to elaborate or clarify the Pope's comments, claiming that they were not familiar with the interview. More on the Synod for the Family and that headline-making interview with Cardinal Burke next. And back here on Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear appeals from 5 states where traditional marriage laws had been struck down by lower courts. Same-sex marriages can now essentially take place in Indiana, Oklahoma, Utah, Virginia, and Wisconsin. 6 additional states under those appellate court jurisdictions might soon follow suit. The decision, it should be noted, did not affirm a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. Court observers speculate that the conservative justices may have voted to delay hearing any more gay marriage cases, given the position of Justice Kennedy, the swing vote on the court. In recent years, he's voted to strike down sodomy laws and has indicated support for states to legalize gay marriage. And the persecution of Christians continues under jihadi advances in the Middle East and Nigeria. On Sunday, in northwestern Syria, al-Nusra militants abducted a Franciscan priest and 20 parishioners. Children were among the abducted. Father Hana Halouf was later released, but remains under house arrest by order of the local Islamic court. A motive is not yet clear. However, a church spokesman told the press agency of France that Father Halouf and other Christians have been accused of cooperating with the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. No word on the condition or whereabouts of the other abducted. And a leading prelate in Iraq is accusing its Muslim-led government of abandoning Christians. Chaldean Archbishop Bashar Warda told Aid to the Church in Need that the international aid being distributed by Iraq's government is going to Muslims, but not to the Christians fleeing the Islamic State militants. He said the reality is that Baghdad has done absolutely nothing for the 120,000 Christians who are desperate for sanctuary. Archbishop Warda further criticized Iraq's Muslim leaders for not condemning ISIS and lamented the looting of Christian homes. And the first beatification mass ever in the United States took place in Newark, New Jersey, this past weekend. Sister Miriam Teresa Demjanovich died in 1927 at the age of 26. The Bayonne native was a member of the Sisters of Charity of St. Elizabeth for just 2 years before succumbing to complications of appendicitis. During a short time in the order, she was known for her virtue and her mature writings. Her work, Greater Perfection, is to this day published by the order. Last year, Pope Francis recognized the miraculous healing of a boy's macular degeneration in the 1960s. Declared legally blind, his perfect vision was inexplicably restored 15 minutes after he was given a lock of the nun's hair. He prayed for her intercession. That boy, Michael Menser, 50 years later, was front and center at the Mass honoring Sister Miriam. And finally tonight, some sad news. Father Benedict Groeschel, the beloved author of more than 40 books, preacher, and the founder of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, died this past Friday. He was 81. Father Groeschel's health had been declining recently following an extended illness. He was a longtime fixture on EWTN for over 25 years. He hosted numerous series, as well as his own live show, Sunday Night Live. He was ordained a priest in 1959 for the Detroit Capuchin province, and he held a master's degree in counseling and a doctoral degree in psychology. He ran a retreat house for priests in Larchmont, New York, and taught pastoral psychology at St. Joseph's Seminary in Yonkers. Father Benedict may have been a psychologist by trade, but his heart was always with the poor. He spoke constantly of the need to serve them, which he and his fellow friars did in the U.S., Europe, and Central America. It was an honor to have counted him among my personal friends. And here are some of my favorite moments with Father Benedict. Take a look.
Can I ask a question? Something that's just been drawing my attention as we're talking here. You have a drowsing hippo here. And he's not a... I mean, he's not even a perky hippo. He's a snoozing, drowsing hippo wearing your shade of gray. May I ask why this furnishing is prominently displayed here on your desk?
This is my symbol of the ecclesiastical bureaucracy. Not the church, but all churches. Now, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, other religions, they have their bureaucracy.
May I turn the tables on you just for a moment and probe that a bit? Now, why do you believe, and in what way does this corpulent, drowsing hippo resemble the ecclesial bureaucracy, please? Can you break it down for us?
Because he's so old, so ugly, so awkward, not malevolent.
Not malevolent, no. He looks like a very charming hippo. However, you should know, if you get too close, they can take your arm off.
Yes. But that's your problem.
That's my problem. Thanks a lot.
See, but T.S. Eliot, the great English poet, has a poem called The Church of the Hippopotamus, meaning the ecclesiastical establishment.
So this is a literary reference then. Now you're trying to couch this now as a literary a tribute to T.S. Eliot.
And
I see.
At the end of the poem, T.S. Eliot says, "The hippo rises up to heaven by all the virgin martyrs kissed, while the church remains below, sunk in the miasmal mist. So remember, I've worked for the church all my life.
Oh, if anyone would know, you would know that hippo better than most.
And I often have to tell the brothers when we're working with the bureaucracy, let me do it. I know how the hippo works.
Yeah, well, I'm also troubled by the smallness of their ears. That's a problem, isn't it?
They don't listen.
Yeah, they don't listen very well.
No.
Yeah. Well, I bet we should not. We should end our meditation on the hippo at this point, I think, for
And
the
don't
safety of both of us.
forget that God loves hippos.
He was a delight, wise and funny and so prayerful. Joining us now from New Jersey is the co-founder of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal and one of Father Benedict's closest friends, Father Andrew Apostoli. He joins us from Newark. Father, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Raymond, to be talking with you and with your viewing audience there.
Tell me, what about Father Benedict that perhaps we didn't see, that you, as a co-founder of the order and someone who lived with him, worked with him, saw, that reflects on his legacy and what we should know about him as a religious?
Well, you know, Raymond, I always felt it was a great blessing to know him and to be privileged to work with him. We were both Capuchins, but he asked me to come from my province, which was in New Jersey, to go over and work with him in the New York area where he was working at Trinity Retreat. He was an amazing person. I actually heard about him, never met him for a number of years, but I heard about him when I was just a young high school seminarian. People talked about this young brother that was in the other province, and I couldn't wait to meet him. Then later on, people were telling me, you know, Father Andrew, you look like Father Benedict. You sound like Father Benedict, and you say the same things that he says. So I was so anxious to meet him, and he asked me to come and work with him, and I felt that was a great privilege. He was an amazing person. One thing I would say, Raymond, that characterized him was he had this tremendous zeal, a drive to get things done. He was serving the Lord with all his heart. And I remember when I went to work with him, he said to me one day, he said, Father Andrew, today we are going to have either a three-ring circus day, a roller skate day, or a bilocation day. And to me, that was him. You know, he was always, zealous to do what the Lord wanted. Yeah, and he loved the Lord very deeply.
So many accomplishments. I mean, building the Trinity Retreat House, the Good Counsel homes, which are homes for pregnant mothers, and then, of course, this earlier home that he built for young boys, and the community, the great houses you all have for the homeless in the Bronx, and really now around the world. What do you think will be his legacy, Father Apostoli?
I think two things. Number one, that he was steadfast in his loyalty to the church. He was really a son of the church. Always defended true teaching, even when he took stands when it wasn't very popular, on the issues of the day, when he spoke, our Catholic faith. I think he's going to be known for that, and his direction for so many people, so many priests, so many religious, that he talked about the spiritual life. One great thing he was able to do, he was able to take the traditional teaching of the church and prayer and things like that in the spiritual life and combine it with modern psychology, which is not always easy to do, as we know.
Yeah.
But he had an amazing way about him. And
that marvelous sense of humor, the favorite line that he told me once, and I'm sure he repeated it to many others, I grew up in Jersey City where the light at the end of the tunnel was Newark. He was great. Nobody like him.
That was him. That was him. He had these expressions. Yeah. The other thing I would say about his legacy, his love of the poor. He really had a tremendous love of the poor. Like at Christmas, people didn't know this. Christmas, Easter, he would always have poor people come to the retreat house or the friary and have a special meal for those days because he knew these people didn't have anything. But he always wanted to make these days special for them. But he always had a great interest and concern for the poor people, and he made it. He really insisted that we had to open our shelter within the first year of our new community being in existence. He wanted that for the homeless, the food giveaway, and so many things that he wanted us to do for the poor. So
he
his,
was the complete
legacy,
package.
That's it, the preaching, and so on. He'll be known. His tapes will be going for the next 100 years. You know that?
Yeah, well, Father Andrew, I thank you so much for joining us for this memory and to remembering great Father Benedict. And I think you all are a big part of his legacy as well. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Raymond. God bless you.
EWTN and Doug Keck will be doing live coverage of Father Benedict Groeschel's funeral mass on Friday, which will re-air throughout the weekend. You can go to EWTN.com for air times. May Father Benedict Groeschel rest in peace.